watch, exactly. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming to our talk, AWE at 15. It turns out we weren't crazy after all. Chris and I are going to attempt to cover the last 15 years since AWE's inception in 20 minutes. But first I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, and Chris is going to tell you a little bit about himself. For me, my journey with XR started back in the 2000s, or back in, sorry, let me go back here.
That's right.
Oh yeah, sorry, back in the 2000s when I was running a VR meetup at BNR Nortel while I was a software engineer. I was tinkering with Vermal and going to Vermal 97 conferences like that. So I was just caught up in the sort of cultural milieu at the time, all the popular fiction and non-popular, nonfiction that was written at the time. But cut to 2006, 2009, that's when I was running a software development group at a virtual worlds company that was caught up in the Second Life craze. You know, back then we thought that the 3D was going to take over the internet, right? Of course, that didn't quite pan out. So it was really 2009 when, to me, AR became real. I've been thinking about AR for a long time, but I saw this ad campaign, and some of you may have seen it, by GE about their windmills. And you could hold this black and white marker up to a webcam on your PC and see something pop out of the paper, and I was hooked. I was like, oh my gosh. So I wrote a post to a New York City tech forum at the time. And almost immediately, I got a response back from a guy you might know called Ori Imbar. And so Ori and I kind of hit it off. We had coffee, and we both realized we were very passionate about AR. And that was actually the year that I started my company, Past Reality. And Ori and I actually did our very first AR project together for SAP, and that's what it looked like. We've come a long way since then. And also around the same time, we started this meetup called Arnie, and here's some of the OGs that were regular speakers. Chris Grayson used to haul his camera equipment to every meeting and video it. Sadly, a lot of that video is lost to history because it was in Ustream. But you know, like geeks of all stripes could come and show off their AR projects, their VR projects, and then in 2010, of course, we all know, AWE was born. Tish Shute and Ori Imbar organized that. I gave a talk. There were about 300 people at that conference. And the highlight for me was getting to sit with Will Wright, one of the gods of game development. And he actually played my AR game that I'd done called 5 Lives of Chris Angel, where he held a marker up and helped Chris Angel escape while we were trying to fix his parrot drone. Since that time, Past Reality has helped clients, both large enterprise as well as startups, with their XR strategy and development. And these are just some of the internal projects we've done. What we like to do is when we see a new technology in XR come out, we like to play with it and see what can it do. And in the case of WizardBall for the Apple Vision Pro, is what can the Vision Pro do? What can we do with the native development on that platform? Epic Marble was about how could somebody play a game in their real space anywhere where they are using the LiDAR camera that had just come out on the iPad Pro. And then, of course, Babble Rabbit was when 6D.ai came out with their meshing on the iPhone. And we wanted to see, okay, what would it be like if you had a virtual pet you could talk to and it could run and hide behind things? But our bread and butter is our clients. These are some of the great clients we've had over the years, over the last 16 years, believe it or not. And we'd love to hear from you if you have anything you want developed, be it WebAR or on Quest or on Vision Pro. And then I'm going to throw it to Chris, who has his own storied history in the industry.
Sure, my home. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. Patrick, excellent intro.
Thank you.
My story, it's funny, when we decided to do this talk together, we both went off and did our own histories and came back with slides, and they were almost the same. And so Patrick and I, even though we grew up in different parts of the country, we both kind of had the same bug of AR. So for me, this is almost the same as Patrick's first slide. We both started off thinking about this in the mid-90s. 3D chat rooms, I started doing VRML and making these things, and I was convinced, just like Patrick, that the whole internet was going to be 3D like within a decade, and I'm like, this is what I'm doing, this is my job. Graduate from college, and I had two offers. I had one offer to go to this company, Black Sun Interactive, that was doing 3D chat rooms, and I had another offer from a game company. Guess what I chose? So I ended up going to this company, Microprose. We were making flight sims, and I then went on to EA Maxis, worked on a lot of the Sims games for a while, then Namco. All in all, about 13 years making AAA, PC, mostly some console, but mostly PC video games. And what I found was like that metaverse that I was actually trying to find in the early days in the 3D chat rooms was pretty much alive and well in the game industry. And we saw it early on with like LANs, and then later on you had like the larger kind of scale multiplayer experiences. Online, Quake, and all these things came along to kind of just connect people in real time. But then the MMOs came along, Ultima Online, and then later World of Warcraft and things. And these were essentially metaverses. And if you were participating in one at the time, you had an avatar, you had friends, you had a social. If you were doing EVE Online, you may even have like a business going on. So it was all kind of happening there in the game industry, and I was perfectly content. XR didn't even come into the equation. We would get cool equipment from time to time, all the cool joysticks, all the cool headsets, and there was VR headsets and things at the time. This is back in the 90s, but they were terrible. The experience was terrible. The latency was terrible. They were heavy. It made no sense to the game industry. I would say, I will speak for the whole game industry and say we all just kind of like said, what's the point? We're not going to sell any more games with this. It's not a great experience. Why do it? So we skipped it. After about 13 years of this, I gave up and I said, I need to do something else. I didn't want to give up games and making stuff because I just loved it. So I found a university that wanted to start a game program on the East Coast. I joined it, helped them build the program. And somewhere in there, I was working on my master's degree, and it was an education master's degree. And everyone in that degree program was very academic and theoretical. Nobody was actually making or doing anything in the technology space. And then they started talking about AR, and that whole sector was just like just rampant about the potential for this to teach students better than current methods. And so I got into it, and I was actually, because I already had all these other tools under my belt, like Unity and other things, I started just making stuff. And I would just show up to class every day with like, here's my new AR project, and I would show them something. And Vuforia just made it really easy to do on your phone or your tablet, and the headsets weren't really a big thing yet. Then Oculus comes along, right? Mm-hmm. Company called Leap Motion in 2010 comes out with a thing called the Leap Motion controller. I got it Kickstarter, $40 or $50, I think, the original one, and I got hooked. And it was just this idea of it's not a controller, a gun, or anything else in this world. I just reached into a virtual world and and some semblance of myself, like more than I'd ever felt before. And I just said, this is profound. And so I spent a lot of time during this period just developing AR and VR demonstrations with hand tracking. That got me to a conference, this thing called Augmented World Expo. I'd been to a few of them, not as many as Patrick, but I've been to since 2012 or 13, I think I started coming. And then in 2017, I end up here, and I get a demo from a company called Ultra Haptics. And they put on a VR headset, and they put on the headphones. And I hold my hands out, and I start feeling things, like heat and cold, and I'm holding objects. And I had no idea, because you're in a full VR setup, I didn't know how this happened. And I just took off my headset and I said, I do everything that you're doing here except for that haptic thing. I don't know what that is. How do you do that? And how can I do that? And that led to a job. And so I've been at Ultraleap doing this for about 7 years. A lot of prototyping and hand tracking. A lot of exploring new use cases. I'm in partnerships now, so I don't get to make things anymore. I just get to talk to people, shake hands. But we just 3 weeks ago launched our 6th generation hand tracking. So we've been doing this a very long time. AI company, machine learning company. We've been doing this forever. We're starting to think about what can we do next. Like we've taken hand tracking pretty far, but we're starting to hear from people like so many different use cases that are like industrial, enterprise, education, and they want things in their hands, and they want to be able to do things like micro gestures. And so that's what Hyperion's all about. It's kind of a large kitchen sink kind of suite that's addressing a lot of really specific problems we see in the sector. Anyway, that's me. We're going to shift gears and take you guys over to the main course. So, why are we here? How did we get here? And why is this the year again, Patrick?
Yeah, again, right? Yeah, so that's a good question. So yeah, Chris, I was gonna, like how did we get here? So we're not going to talk about these guys. There's a lot that came before AWE. We're going to kind of focus on the last 15 years. So, yeah, I mean, the way I look at it, there were these tracks. There's like the mobile track. There's the headset track, and there's just, I don't know, some like key moments that were aha moments. And so when you look at the mobile AR, which was the prime, probably the biggest market so far across,
Sure.
in the last 15 years. You started with the ability to track 2D markers, right? And then you got to image tracking. But to me, like the big sort of watershed moment was when they started adding SLAM. And one SDK in particular that really blew me away was 6D.ai, because they managed to take like kind of what was being done on the HoloLens at the time and the Tango, and they put it in a single monocular camera view, and they let you mesh the world. And so before that, you had to have a marker, or you had to know the contours of the thing you were trying to augment. But this was great, because now you could augment the world as it is no matter where you were, right? Because you could tell that the contours of that. You could put a rabbit on a nav mesh and it would run places. It could hide behind things. It knew you knew what the world was. And so that was really, to me, like that was a big watershed moment in mobile AR. And I don't know, what do you think? What are some like?
SLAM is a big one.
Yeah.
I remember the first time we mapped our office using the HoloLens, and that mesh was like so good that we started networking into the HoloLens with all of our other headsets and using that mesh that we could all have like a shared space.
Yeah.
And it was, and just having everything in the headset, even today, is like profound. Like how much technology was in that device.
Oh yeah,
and
that was like to me, like that was the first time I was in the industry. When did that come out? What was the year?
2010.
2010. Yeah, I'd already been in the industry.
No, it's more like 2015.
20, yeah. Anyway, I'd already been in the industry so long, and that was the first time I felt like I really had an AR experience, because you had Movero, you had Vuzix, you had ODG, you had all these headsets already out that were cool and were exciting. When you put them on your head, you thought, oh, but it never felt like the content was locked to the world.
Yeah.
Like to me, the HoloLens, that was the first headset that I put on that was.
I agree.
Like. Of course, it's underpowered by today's standards.
Yeah, I mean, it was not a great experience. It was a great experience
but it just
in some
sort of
sense,
pointed the way. It became like the.
Yeah, we had the dream, and I think everybody just saw there's so much potential in that one device of helping to push us forward. But everybody also accepted, I think, that it wasn't what we all were kind of thinking of, like in terms of the field of view, maybe some of the just fidelity of the interactions, and the processing was kind of not that strong.
But I guess there were also some really big events that like, so you had Pokemon Go was a big event. I don't know which one of these you want to dive into. You had Google Glass, of course, Meta, Magic Leap came along with that. So which of those three would you want to dig into, you think? Like,
I mean, in terms of just like something that I thought was going to like kickstart a phenomenon, obviously Pokemon. I mean, this thing was like perfect IP, mass market audience, right time. Nobody needed to buy a device. Everybody had the device already, and it was just download the software and it works. Paired with like really powerful tech from Google that nobody else had, that could like map everything perfectly in the world. To me, it was
Pokemon Go.
Well, I ended up giving a talk one time. I was in Virginia, and I gave a talk to like the parks department, because they were absolutely freaked out that there were thousands of people in their parks that weren't there a month before, and they didn't know why, and they didn't know if this phenomenon was something that was going to keep happening. And so I had to do some research and explain AR to them, and explain to them that this is a game, and yes, it's probably going to happen again. And honestly, I thought it was going to happen a lot more and more frequently than it has. But so it was kind of a fluke.
Yeah, it was.
Not that Niantic's not doing a good job. They are. It's just I think they just got it so right the first time.
Yeah.
It's just easy game with like the right IP.
Well, yeah, but they're really killing it on the web front. So that's another whole section where the web AR has come so far.
Yeah, WebXR, all that stuff. Yeah.
Like WebXR, and then Eighth Wall, you can have a very high fidelity experience on the web with the tools of today, which is maybe a good segue, because I think we're getting close to the end of this.
Yeah. What else did we get into here?
Yeah. So the next section is why now? Why now, Chris? Why is now different? So why as Dorothy on the Yellow Brick Road? We started at the center, and then we kind of had to do a couple spirals around and talk to the Munchkins, to get.
We're still in the spiral.
But it feels like, are we still in the spiral?
I think we're still in the spiral.
Out of the spiral, we can see the castle. No, we can't see the Emerald City.
Emerald City's down there. We're not there yet.
Not the straight and way. Okay.
But nonetheless, I think it's why now is a great question. And why is this the year again? Why do we always think it's the year? Because we, as an industry, I mean, I'd say if nothing else, we're resilient as we keep coming back here. But yeah, I don't think we're quite there. I think we're still in the spiral. But I do think that there's a few reasons why you should be getting invested in developing it right now, because I think those markets are right there to be had. AVP was clearly like a catalyst to, it's not mass market yet, it's a really expensive device and it needs some tuning and things, but we know that Apple's going to go mass market. Here has an iPhone, right? And this, for that reason, I think we're going to start seeing more of those out there at price points we can see.
Yeah, I mean, I think keying off of that, I mean, what I would say is that every experience you can dream of that we've been talking about in XR, you can probably do with the devices we have. If you want to do a killer VR experience, you can get a Quest 3 for now, what, $300, $400, and it's accessible for everyone. In the Vision Pro, yes, it's at a high price point, but if you want to prototype or get into what is the future going to hold for XR? Oh, sorry, I forgot.
You're good.
Yeah, what is the future going to hold for XR? Then you can do it now with the tools that we have. So you've got Unreal Engine, you've got Unity, WebXR I already talked about. So like in terms of a tool chest, like as a developer, it's like a smorgasbord.
There's really no excuse.
There's
Like,
really
even
no
if you've never made AR or even touched a computer before, there's almost no excuse because there's so many tools and so much community and so many like YouTube videos to teach you how to do pretty much everything on the planet.
Yeah, but as far as AVP, I mean, talk about a device that has pretty much baked into it everything that has ever happened in the last 15 years almost, and they just added object tracking. Yes, it's too heavy. Yes, it's too expensive, but I mean, I think it's really pointing the way. And if if the Apple Vision 4 has the same success that the iPhone 4 had in terms of market share, I mean, I think we're kind of off to the races. So I think we're pretty close out of the spiral, but I've always been an eternal optimist. So.
I try not to judge Apple Vision Pro too harsh because I think it's a very cool product. I think it's destined to be a mass market product. Not that specific one, but its lineage will end up there.
All right, so that's a good segue into what's next. We'll be at 7 minutes. Okay, so we'll take a couple of minutes to talk about next, and then maybe open up to questions if we have time.
Let's do. So this is predictions.
Predictions, yeah. So here we go.
Let's look at the future.
You got to go
too
back.
far.
One back. One more back.
You killed me. There you go.
There we go.
All right.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Chris spent a lot of time individually on each pixel in this, so you don't want to skip it. But yeah. So for me, I think what's next and where we're headed with one of the big categories anyway to me is telepresence. I think that what I've been dreaming about with AR since its inception is about being able to have this conversation we're having right now as if we're in the same room, but we're in different places. And I think we're seeing some hints of that with the personas from Apple Vision Pro and whatever Meta's avatars are, and they've showed some lab stuff that they're doing. And that's one approach. Since you have a headset on, a big bulky headset, you need to fake what the other person looks like. You need to do a deep fake of them in some way. But there's other things like Looking Glass, and I think I just saw Steelcase had an announcement of more like, you're having a conversation with a display in front of you that perhaps is volumetric.
Sure.
So I think we have to get to that. I think that that's coming. That's my big thought is that, and I think that's all headed in that way, is we're communicative beings, We like to gather, and so we're gonna gather, and I think ideally in AR versus VR, for instance, but what would you say?
That's a big space for me too. I like telepresence a lot. SIGGRAPH, I got to see like the cool real-time nerfing from NVIDIA. That was impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, they had to have like edge computers that I'll never be able to afford like right next door, but in real time, I had a single webcam pretty much make a perfect frame-by-frame version of me in 3D that was compelling enough that I'm like, okay, I can see where that's going. And Google's got their Starliner, and so there's a strong draw for humans to be able to have human relations from distance. The telephone is an early example of that. This is really like, we have these Zoom calls, or we have even like a avatar VR call these days, and there's so many pieces missing that we haven't filled in yet.
Yeah.
And
AI is probably going to fill in a lot of that potential.
Smell. And,
I don't know about smell, but yeah.
We shall see. So telepresence is a big one. For me, AI, right? I mean, this has been like just a bonkers year for ChatGPT last fall to now. I think everybody in the room's probably touched some kind of AI
for
tool
sure.
in the last year, right?
Sure.
I know I have. But to me, it's a big disruptor to the AR space more than anything else. I think VR, it's definitely valuable. I've had friends who are building games who just dropped AI agents in as NPCs and that sort of thing. But in AR, it's taking these dumb glasses that may have a camera on them and making them really, really useful all of a sudden.
Yeah, totally. I know, I totally agree. And I think that where AI also, I mean, AI has always been a part of XR, which is always ironic, like, because you need AI to understand the world. And I think where AI is going to hopefully shine and not, there's obviously the dystopian version of AI.
I've got lots of those.
Lots of that. But in terms of where it could potentially be helpful in the AR is providing, like, contextual awareness. So like a lot of the SDKs are getting pretty good at like some semantic understanding of like a room or where your space is, but really XR is about locating where you are in space, where's your head, where are your hands, where are objects in the room, but also trying to like intuit what your intention is with content, right? And figure out what you need to place where. So the virtual content has to be what you expect, when you expect it, and meet the desire of what you want in the moment. And I think that's where AI, if done well, and and if it's not taken over the world, and created just a soup of paper clips, then I think that's where I think that's where it could shine.
Yeah, I think Skynet, Terminator future, may not. I'm more worried about the near term. So I really feel like AI in the near term is going to teach us all we're going to be talking to animals, all of them, pretty soon. And I think we have a really difficult decision at that point of should we still eat them now that we can talk to them?
I did hear a really interesting take on the whale communication. They're making some real strides in that. Like they
all have
whales,
names.
they click in like syllables and like they have, it's crazy.
And we can't understand, but AI can, and AI can tell us what they say.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to a whale.
So with that,
XR. So yeah, thank you. That's our talk. Do we have time for questions? Oh, we got 3 minutes for questions. Yeah.
Nice job.
You too, man.
So now that we've moved to Long Beach, which is adjacent to Hollywood,
Sure.
how do you see that affecting this conference and affecting the makeup of the kind of content that comes out of the conference, and what kind of startups may be thought up now that we're in Hollywood?
That's a great question. I mean, you live in this area, so you know a lot about.
I live in San Francisco.
Yeah, I mean, well, you live in the state. I'm sorry, you live in the state. So yeah. So how's it different for you, like going from San Francisco to here? Like before, it was like in your backyard, right? So.
Well, I mean, with respect to this stuff, AI specifically, I think there's a huge fear that it's going to replace actors, and it already has, and we don't even know it. Like,
True.
I'm pretty sure Nicolas Cage died a while ago. He was in like 5 movies this year.
Yeah, good.
So I don't know. I do think it's a real thing. But I think it's just like artists in the 3D art that we're seeing here, like all the image AI generated. It's a tool. It's like a paintbrush. It's like anything. And I think it's really up to us to figure out how to really use that for the best possible outcome. So if Nicolas Cage wants to be in like 900 movies until my grandkids, are around, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's great.
I think it'll affect the attendance. You'll probably see more creative in movie and entertainment industry focus from some of the attendees, but I don't know if it'll change the overall character of the show. I think, the character of this show has just been people who are crazy, like looking ahead and saying, this is, we love this stuff, and I don't know. To this day, I still haven't seen that change in AWE. I mean, it's gotten obviously a lot more enterprise and everything, but that still has that core. So,
I would say the game industry struggled for a long time trying to come up with automatic story generators, and to date, I still don't think we've got a great one.
Yeah.
And I think that's where honestly, it's starting to turn the corner to where I'm saying, okay, all that's possible now.
Yeah.
Like great story writing, great acting, sets, everything else. So it's almost every job. And it's not just Hollywood, it's every job. And that, I mean, I'm at the extreme of this kind of world, but I really feel like we need to get on universal income immediately.
Yeah, good point. Do we have any other questions? All right.
All right. Beautiful. Great talk. Definitely touches on the magic of what AWE is. I know, Sean, you would, Patrick, you would make even the rabbit one. It was kind of like a demo you made for an AWE as a launch with 6 6 a.m.?
Well, yeah, that was just me using it at the conference. But yeah, it wasn't specifically made for. It was a demo. We won the Demo God Challenge that 60 Day IAA put on. But it wasn't really meant to be anything. I mean, yeah, I guess my process, I don't know, is there a question in there?
Well, the question would be like, in that culture, right, of having a great demo at AWE, right? This is really the place where you would want to impress
Right, sure.
the industry, the brands,
Yeah.
whatever, partnerships. What have you guys seen as a demo? What would you like to see that would really blow your mind?
Well, I mean, I have not yet actually seen any of the show because we've been like rehearsing our talk and such. But yeah, I mean, well, I'm going to selfishly say that we put together a game for Apple Vision Pro that I'd love to show anybody that wants to see it. But in terms of what I want to see at the show, I want to see what's happening with haptics, and I want to see what's happening with headsets I haven't seen before, if there's anything else out there. That's what I'm usually looking for, and just really interesting, sort of content as well. Yeah, that's what I usually look for.
The ones, I mean, I've come to this conference quite a bit, and almost every year somebody brings something in like a category people are starting to call like digital heritage, which is like the idea that like you can capture things in a place, in a time, and then if you revisit them with a headset, then you can kind of relive that moment.
That's a great one.
And we're starting to see enough like splatting and other kind of technology come together, but that's not just going to be like a picture of somebody at the bar. That's going to be like that person animating with AI and like interactive agents.
Yeah.
So here's like the moment as it was, and now you can get in there and like change things up a little bit.
When can we feel hot and cold haptics at a bar?
We do it. We've given so many demos with like headsets, and when you have control over visual and audio, and then we start giving you haptics, you can fool people really well. Even though we're not applying heat, I've had so many demos where we're like, how'd you apply heat to my hand? And it's not, it's just you've got so many things hitting the
Actually, one
senses at the
demo
same
that
time.
you did was just a VR demo. It was
Oh, the
like
jellies.
it was the spacesuit. You're in a spacesuit, and you put like fire on the person's hand. They're cold, and I actually felt it. It was like one of the first VR sort of DK2 demos I did was
cheat.
yours. And yes,
cheat.
of course, the jellyfish were amazing.
You cheat where you can. I made this jellyfish demo where they tingled like when you touched them, and everybody said, oh, my fingers are tingling.
Yeah.
Good.
That's what we want.
It's like the placebo effect is still strong with them.
I think it's there, but it's smoke and mirrors. It's not really getting, I mean, it's doing your best to kind of approximate what sensation without actually, because you're not going to get one-to-one without actually, neural implant. We're not quite there yet.
That's the definition of good narrative, right? If you can take somebody there, I think that's crucial.
Yeah,
I think we're at time. I'm sorry. I
Thank
know
you,
it's a
though.
great
Thank you.
discussion, but yeah, thank you guys so much.